All we need is a place to be and a few good friends for some company. If you'd like to stay, you don't have to leave. We'll leave the lights on and the door unlocked. If you drop on by, you don't have to knock. We're happy to share whatever we've got.
Hi, I'm Clay, and this is Yarn About You, a podcast where I get to chat with people I know and love, as well as people I'd just like to meet and hear their story. Yarn About You would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which this podcast was recorded. We'd like to pay our respects to the elders, past, present and emerging, for passing on their knowledge and stories, keeping the Indigenous culture alive for all generations to come. Today's guest is actress Maxine Klibingaitis. Maxine is an absolute legend in Australian television with credits in such shows as Neighbours, where she played Paul Robinson's first wife, Special Squad, Fields of Fire, The Flying Doctors, Family and Friends, Hampton Court, Col'n Carpenter, All Together Now, Blue Heelers, Round the Twist, Martial Law, MDA and so much more. She's fondly remembered as Bobbie Mitchell in the iconic television show Prisoner, where she had a 2-year run. I'd like to have a special thank you to Rick Ireland, who's the person who connected Maxine and I a few years ago. This connection has resulted in many long phone calls where we've discussed the industry, politics, and pretty much solved all the problems of the world. Thanks, Rick. I've always been a fan of Maxine. She's a bright light and a genuinely beautiful person who I'm very proud to call my friend. I hope you enjoy our yarn. Maxine Klibingaitis, I am so happy to be sitting in front of you. I really am, you know I am. We've known each other for a couple of years, but this is actually the first time we're sitting in front of each other.
I can't say what a pleasure it is to finally meet you. We've been talking about someone that's been a connector for both of us for such a long time, and we've become friends through that, and I feel as though I know your family. And
yeah, well, you do, really. Yeah. And the person is beautiful Miss Abigail, who we both know and love and always will. But I want to know about you today.
Yep.
So tell me about your parents.
Oh, okay.
Let's go right back.
Yeah. My father and my mother were both migrants. Mum came from the UK and they were the 10-pound Poms, and Dad came from Lithuania. Oh, that's right, he worked as a cleaner and at night time, and then during the day he studied insurance, and so he became an insurance broker, and he met my mother at RACV Insurance in the city. They got married and started a family, and that was me and my sister Caroline, my brother Francis, oh, he'll hate that, Frank, and Belinda.
Beautiful. And you've always been based in Melbourne?
Always.
Fantastic.
Except for work and the like, but yeah, always lived here. Yeah.
So you've had quite a long career in the entertainment industry. How did that start? What was your first gig, or what was your first inkling that you wanted to be on stage or in front of the camera?
I think I always just knew. And I just remember going into the ABC, and I was 17 and a half, and I said I didn't realise it was the casting director, who I now know to be Greg Apps, who's no longer the casting person at the ABC, but he was there, and I said, do you need any actresses? I was so up myself, really, quite frankly, because, well, I wasn't an actress, really. And he said, yes, we do, and gave me a cold reading. And then I got the train home, and then the bus, and then I walked. And when I got home, Mum said the ABC had called, and she didn't know where I'd been. And so I rang them back, and they said, could you come in again tomorrow, which I did. And then they said, you've got the role. And it was in a kids' show called Home. And I did that for 5 weeks, and then we wrapped. And while I was there, somebody told me that Grundy's, as they were then, they're now Fremantle, were auditioning for a character. I didn't even know it was for Prisoner, actually, just that they were looking for someone who was small but had to be about 18. And I thought, I'll just ring them and do the same thing, which I did. I rang and said, hi, how are you going? Do you need any actresses? Well, I don't know. And so they said yes. And so again, I walked down to the bus stop, got a bus, then a bus to the train station, then got a train because my family lived out in Mulgrave, which is near Springvale. Springvale station was the closest station, and then had to get the train into Paran, and then from there I had to walk to the head office, and I auditioned. I didn't even know it was for Prisoner, actually. And I thought, well, this is really easy. They're probably just going to give me the job because I can't see anyone else here. I was so stupid. And same thing happened. I went home, did all that again, and Mum said, I'm going to do my mother's voice. This is how we do an impression of my mother at home. She's very dead, so she didn't mind when she was alive, by the way. And she said, Mr. Grundy rang. She didn't know where I'd been. And I said, oh, yeah. So I rang them back and they said, could you come in again tomorrow? I said, yeah, I've done this before. So I went in the next day, same old thing, and they said, congratulations, you are Bobbie in Prisoner. And I said, oh, okay, thinking I really haven't watched that show. I don't. My sisters did, and I knew of the show, of course, but I hadn't watched it. And I thought, oh, shit, I really don't know. I can't. Nah, that's ridiculous. How am I going to? They gave me the script. I met the producer, the associate producer, Ian Smith, who became, well, he was an actor at the time anyway, or prior to, and he became Harold in Neighbours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they were so happy to see me, and I thought, I don't know, is this like a joke? So I went home. Seriously, I didn't have an agent. I had nothing. I knew nothing. I went home with a script on the train.
Wow.
And I've since written a book about that because Bobbie, I said in my book, I read the script and Bobbie read the train stations, but after I told her, what the show was about, she really dug it. And that was it. I stayed for 2 years on that show. But what happened was, because I had no agent, initially when you get a long-run offer, really there's no real contract because it's all one way. It's their way, not yours at all. So they can just let you go at any time. But they say it's for 3 months. And so then you think, oh, I've got 3 months of this. And then we'll see what happens. Well, my character came in at the same time as another character and she left after 8 weeks. And I thought, oh, I'll be next. It doesn't matter. At least I'll have done the 3 months. That's good. But they got my dad in, my father, right? So since I've done my mother's voice, I'll do Dad. Yes, hello, Sue Masters. How do you do? My name is Maxine Klibingaitis, and I am here to represent my daughter as her manager. Right, couldn't have been more fucking chunky if he tried. Talk about dodgy brothers. So I went from basic wage, which I think was something like $800 a week or something like that. But when I finished Prisoner, because I had no agent and I had my manager.
Yeah, you had a great manager by the sounds of it.
Every 3 months, apparently, your agent would say, that's great, you want to keep my actor on for another 12 months. That's brilliant. Yeah, and there'd be no pay rise, really. There may be a bit of negotiation, but not a huge one. But no, because I was stuck with my dad in his Sunday best and Sue Masters saying, oh, hi, Mr. Klibingaitis. No, we still want to keep it. Oh, that's good. Well, another 3 months it is. I ended up clearing $2,000 a week.
Wow.
As a kid, I was 20 when I left that show and I chose to leave because I'd had enough. Really, my character was never going to go anywhere. She's just going to say, oh, bloody hell, oh, shut up, it's not my fault, no one loves me. And it was just more of that. And at one point we were offered, the writers used to come in and Ian Smith did ask Genevieve Lemon, who my character was cellmates with. And I, one day, have you had any thoughts about storylines? And we never really thought like that. We just did what we were told, really. And we said, look, we've been talking, it'd be great if our characters could have a storyline where they got out and they got day release or some sort of release where they're able to have a little flat and it goes, belly up and they have to come back. He said, no, you're really talking about a spin-off. Well, no, we weren't. So, look, after that, I thought, no, that nothing's going to happen here. And I'm 20. I might as well just keep moving. So I took my manager with me and my chef, my personal chef. There we go, dinner. Mr. Grundy rang. And then I just kept moving. And from that, I knocked back Neighbours, but I then had an agent. By then I found one. And she said, why don't you just do it for a couple of months and then at least that's like fill in some time. And literally they just offered it to me. So I did it for the last 3 months that it was at Channel 7.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to go across to Channel 10, so I just moved on from that and just did other things. And I'm happy I did.
Yeah,
I'm happy
absolutely.
I left Prisoner when I did. I really am.
Oh, it's such an institution, that show, and 2 years is incredible. That's a great run.
Yeah.
It always fascinated me how such a so many storylines could come from people being locked up.
Oh, how ridiculous.
And I was just going to say, they ended up having halfway houses and things, which is the storyline which you wanted anyway.
They had that before, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But they referred back to it quite a bit. It would have been good if Bobbie and Marlene had been trying to do their own thing. Anyway, that didn't happen. But my character was initially in for petty theft. So 2 years is a very long time.
I know.
So she had to keep escaping so that she
so she got kept in there.
Yes.
Ah,
so she'd have to front the VJ and then go, "Oh, not again."
Did you get out in the laundry basket or in the back of a truck?
She tried to get underneath the rubbish, the pickup, yeah, and Myra found her. That was played by the beautiful late Annie Phelan. And another time she went over the fence and spent one night in St Kilda, but she got sprung by two screws who were having dinner together as if in Fitzroy Street in St Kilda, and happened to see her with her Wentworth emblem ripped off her.
No.
Ripped off her. I don't know how she did that. That would have really been hard to do.
Yeah.
She ripped it out so she didn't look like obvious to the cops or anything, and they saw her, and then she went back and she got put in solitary. And
So what was your best memory from the prisoner days?
pretty much the friendships. And
From what I hear, you were a very close cast and crew.
very close, and still are. I mean, they're dropping off a bit. We've lost a few. But the people in the crew, very close, very, very close. Uncle Rabies was one of our floor managers, and it didn't matter what was wrong, if you were tired or you were hungry or he'd help with things, just everything. He would help, just cleverly negotiate and navigate from the floor, and so that nothing became a problem.
It always fascinates me, and it's hard to explain to anybody who hasn't experienced it, the closeness and the friendships that you make on a film set. Everybody works together to make this amazing dream, and they're your family. You're with them all day, all night, every day. And people who haven't experienced don't understand the connection that you have with other actors or people who you've created a show with.
That's exactly true. And, I just remember, because there was quite an age gap between myself and the rest of the cast for a while there before Genevieve came into the show. My friends were from Young Talent Time, who were in the studio across the hallway. You end up knowing everything about one another's lives as well. I mean, you'd know that. You bond with people that you work with so closely. You get changed in front of one another. You see each other in your knickknacks, while you're saying, oh, yes, well, last night, and it's nothing that you're in your undies. Who cares?
Or while you're running lines.
Oh, yes, running lines, and you still, and Prisoner, they were putting on a bra or something, or not, taking one off, so, yeah. And our makeup was always hilarious because it was really day 4 brews, and stuff like that. It was never glamorous, ever. There were a few little things we did. I think Bobbie, that's right, she escaped once by accident.
How do you escape by accident?
I don't know. You get caught up in someone else's really clever plan.
Oh, okay.
And you're like, oh, how did she accidentally stolen a kid from the prison? And so they put her out in the streets in King's Cross. It was a 2-week OV, outside broadcast.
Yeah.
And, so she was a prostitute. She came back up the duff, but then she lost the baby they had a fete, an open day, as if a prison would have a big open day.
That's right, exactly. Welcome, kids. Come on the Ferris wheel.
What could possibly go wrong? So for the here and now, for most of it, it was they tried to stay very true to life in prison.
Now, I remember, is this the story you're talking about in the Cross where you went off in costume? Was that day?
That was when I did a film. We were talking about the same thing. I did a film called Candy Regentag, and I played a prostitute in that. I mean, all the glamour roles. And she had these little leather shorts on and a little matching white sort of little midriff top, and a big belt that said yes, and cowboy boots. And there was another girl in it that was equally she was, playing a prostitute as well. So we went off to pick something up for her from the dry cleaner in the Cross. And while we walked past the pleasure chest, it said girls wanted, and we were ready to go. Like, we had to go back to work anyway. So we went in as if it were, they said, now, you'll only have to do this. They showed us what the little booths that you danced in and stuff. And we said, oh, yeah, okay, as if we were ever really going to do it. And then they said, so you both hired. Ooh, there's a big job offer right there. And they said you won't have to do anything private or anything. That's for some of the other girls if they want to. And I thought, yeah, right, that's just not true. And so anyway, they said, well, we'll see you tonight then about 6 o'clock. We said, well, we'll see you then. And we didn't, but we went back and we told James Ricketson was our director, and we said, we just got jobs, so if you don't want us anymore, we've got other things lined up.
That's right.
Got back up, baby.
That's brilliant. So Prisoner, straight on to Neighbours after that?
Yep.
Did you say?
Yep.
And after Neighbours?
I did some guest roles in things like Special Squad stuff like that. And then, I can't even remember properly. I know I did Col'n Carpenter, I did that as a guest performer. MDA I did as well. Flying Doctors, Shark Bay with Rowena Wallace as well.
I remember Shark Bay.
And, not many people do. And we actually did a send-up of Prisoner on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't ever see it, and I'd like to have a look at it now.
Okay. I'll ask. I've got some friends who have connections at the archives. I'll see if I can find out and get hold of something for you.
Oh, that'd be good. Rowena would like to see it as well. When I last saw her, I said, Rowena, I haven't seen you since we worked on Shark Bay. She said, who are you?
No.
That's all right. I said, I'm Maxine. She said, yes, but what do you mean Shark Bay? I don't know. Fuck it, I don't know. Any cigarettes around here. So she doesn't remember it. So if your friends can get a hold of it, we might jolt her memory forth.
Leave it with me. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah. And so after that, done so many different things. There was I did, Family and Friends, which is where I met Abigail, and she played my mother in that show, and that was such fun. She was so funny and so clever, and we had a ball. We had an absolute blast on camera and off. She was just beautiful. We love her.
Absolutely, we do. And a lot of people are surprised to know that Abby's actually very shy. She really is very shy, absolutely. And a lot of people don't understand that. And she's very happy. She doesn't want to be interviewed, and I don't see any reason to disrespect that. But a lot of people still can't understand the fact that she doesn't want to be on the front of magazines, which, And
we both know she's as beautiful as ever. She may as well
she absolutely is.
She is. Yeah. She's stunning.
Absolutely. In every way. She's just a beautiful lady.
She's a gorgeous human being. And no, I'm with her.
Family and Friends. It was so disappointing that nothing happened with that show. It had all the ingredients of a great series. It was fantastic. The cast was incredible. Who was in the cast?
Well, Anne Phelan, who I'd worked with on Prisoner, and Col'n Carpenter.
And we lost Anne a couple of years ago, didn't we?
I miss her actually pretty much every day. She told me one day during Prisoner that we were sitting outside on a hill waiting to be called down to do something, throw a ball or something. And she said, how old are you? And I said, at that stage, 19. And she said, I have a daughter your age somewhere. And they finally found one another. It's about 8 years ago.
Oh, wow. So when you say she found a daughter, she literally
found her daughter, or her daughter found her, Sandy, who looks just like Annie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and a beautiful person.
Oh,
and had a great upbringing too. Annie had to have her adopted out because that was what her family deemed the decent thing to do. I think her dad might have been the local cop, I could be wrong, and her mother was possibly a school teacher or had something to do with their pretty tight-knit community, and so it was a little bit frowned upon. So Annie had this little baby and had to give it away and didn't really talk about it very much, that whole episode. And, so that had a very happy ending, very happy.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Who else was in the cast? Diane
Craig.
Diane Craig, yep.
Justine Clark,
Yeah,
Simon
Justine.
Westaway,
Rachel Beck.
yeah, Roxanne Wilson.
Yeah, beautiful Roxanne. Seen her or heard of her? What do you know what she's doing?
I met Roxanne when we were filming Clowning Around in Perth in 91. I think she was at Whopper then. So it was before. Was it just before Family and Friends?
She's so beautiful.
She's lovely. She's
Such a good person. Who else? Renato Bartolomeo played the Romeo character.
But it just never.
I think they didn't. Yeah, it was supposed to be like Romeo and Juliet. It were two feuding families. And the drama, for some reason, I don't know why, didn't quite gel. And I don't think Channel 9 gave it enough of a go. They should have left it a bit longer because there was such a lot of hype to begin with before it even started. And that's too loud, too much. It's too busy and people are just they almost don't want to watch it. And that's kind of what happened. The comedy was really clever and really funny. And the writers we had our own studio. So we had our own dressing rooms in there and it was isolated from the rest of Channel 9. We were out somewhere, I don't know, in somewhere land. And the writers were there as well. They had their own room and they would write pretty much on the run.
Oh, wow.
It's a privilege for everybody, nervous-making for them, but a privilege for everybody else.
But it's such a major advantage to be there with the cast, to be able to interact with the cast, to be able to see what's happening, to be able to – yeah, that would have been a great way to do it.
Yeah, and it should have worked. And everybody, like you say, it was a very strong cast. Jonathan Hardy was in it, the great and late Jonathan Hardy.
And Dinah Shearing. We recently lost Dinah Shearing as well. Oh, I bumped into Dinah over at Woolworths one day, our local Woolworths, because she lived in the area. And I introduced myself and she was tiny. She was really little. And I said, you worked with a friend of mine and, we should get you together. And it was Miss Abigail. And she said, oh, yes, I would have loved to have worked with Abigail. I said, you did on Family and Friends. She said, did we?
Oh. Well, Rowena Wallace didn't remember me, so that's all right then.
But no, she was a lovely lady too.
Very nice lady.
And I know after Family and Friends, Hampton Court came after that?
Hampton Court came along, which I did not enjoy.
No?
No. There are sitcoms and then there are shitcoms.
So Hampton Court was a spin-off of Hey Dad?
Yes, it was, for the Betty character.
Okay.
And everybody was perfectly nice on the show, don't get me wrong there. It was just that we're not living in the 50s and 60s anymore with sitcom, you know. And they had a routine that had worked for them on Hey Dad for such a long time that so you're an actor. I mean, mid-joke, you deliver what was meant to be the joke, and that you'd have to wait. They'd call out, laugh.
Oh, so it was laugh track.
They didn't know. They would just call it out in the rehearsal. Laugh.
Wow.
And you'd have to stand there like a moron, frozen moment, and then continue on with the scene.
So was that filmed in
it
front of a live audience?
It was with an audience twice a day on a Saturday, yeah.
So if
2 shows a day.
So if a joke didn't get a laugh, I suppose it had the applause sign.
They just wanted us to wait for it. Well, what would be silly that we can't – we're going to talk over someone laughing and clapping?
Well, that's going to completely stuff up your timing too.
It did, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the cast were really, really nice. We all got along really well, but we were stuck with this archaic, old-fashioned Three's Company, sort of old 70s, Gary Riley was the producer and the creator of the show, and I think it was based on his life in the UK as a young'un, and I think his hairstyle was still stuck there as well. I don't mind saying what I think. That'll do for him now.
Yeah, why not?
Give him too much publicity. The other writer on that show was absolutely brilliant and a really decent person, and I know he's gone on to John Flanagan.
Oh, okay.
And he's gone on to write these great novels. I've not read them, so I'm saying great novels. I've read that they are great, and I believe that. His daughter is a comedian, Kitty Flanagan.
Oh, really? I love Kitty.
Yeah, she's very clever, isn't she?
Yeah, she's so fast.
And he spoke very highly of his family. He was a very decent man, and I think he knew, and he was just he was probably putting the jokes in where Gary Riley, it would always end up something. Gary Riley once said to me, can you go cross-eyed? And I said, no, can't do that. Oh, look at that. Oh.
That's a good idea.
Just staring straight ahead. Look at that. I can. No, I was not going to, because I knew that was going to be the end of the episode, and then it was going to be in the ads for it, and I'm just going to look like a bloody idiot. I'm a vaudeville. I thought that died. No, I said, no, I can't do that. Oh, what a shame.
I love being on a film set. There's on a stage set, whether it's a sitcom or anything. It's such a magical thing to be there and to see the false walls and to see the crew in action. And yeah, I really enjoy that. I've never done live studio audience before.
Col'n Carpenter was a live one as well. My mother got hit in the head with a bloody minty because she was sitting in the studio audience, and they throw lollies out to the audience, and she came into the green room after the show and she had a big lump on her head.
Oh no!
Got hit in the head with a minty. Oh. That's right, said the manager. A minty came flying out to the left. Hit your mother right in the head. I think it served her right. But working with an audience in that situation, because it's kind of theatre, but it's not. And it's pretty easy work, actually, when I think about it. Well, it was 10 o'clock start in the morning and finish at 1. That's an easy day of rehearsal.
Yeah, it's a great day.
Go home, right? Go home, make yourself a little something. And I don't know why I keep doing my mother. I have to stop now. And that's it. I know, silly, isn't it? Because I've got so many of her isms that we just still do in the family. Yeah. Just wanted to see if you're growing up properly. Hey, what mother barges into your room to see that?
So what did she say? She just barged in?
Yeah, I just wanted to check if you're growing up properly.
How old were you?
Probably 20, I don't know.
And were you growing up properly?
I think so. Done all right until now. Still here. Bless them. But that whole live audience you wouldn't, it's a live audience. Well, it's not going to be any other audience, is it? When they say it's shot in front of a live audience, you'd hope so.
Yeah, well, you hope they're not dead.
That's it. That's the other alternative.
It always amazed me, doing stage in front of a live audience. I worked on a Noel Coward play, Private Lives. It was incredible how each audience would laugh at different things, or something that you think would be normal, they'd react in a different way. It's kind of energizing to work with an audience, because you pick up different things all the time and you ride the wave. If it's a flat audience, you feel it and it comes across in your performance, even though you try your hardest not to. But yeah, if you can ride a wave, it's fantastic.
I've just realised I worked on All Together now as well, which is a sitcom also. And that was
John
great
English,
fun. Yeah,
Rebecca
that was
Gibney.
Really good fun. Jane Hall, I still see Jane from time to time. Steve Jacobson.
Bruno?
Bruno Lucia, very funny.
Chicky Babe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that lasted quite a while.
A long run. And a good solid one too. They had very good directors though, you see.
Yeah.
And it had a lot of cohesion, you know. It was a very solid production. So, yeah, Hampton Court, I don't know. Never mind. It's in the past. Get over it. There was a time, I will add something else on, that I said once we had the one director, always, the same person, and she was a lovely person. And I said, why are there no credits for the hideous song, the theme song? It's horrible. Where did they find someone to write that? And she said, don't ever say that out loud again. And I said, why? She said, because Gary Riley wrote it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And didn't credit himself for it.
Okay.
Yeah,
have to have a listen to it.
Torturing yourself. I'll just give you, I won't sing it, but I'll give you a few lines of how it starts. I think everyone will get the idea. Got no worries at all. I'm over the wall. This is about 4 young people living in a flat.
Over the wall?
I'm over the, I said I wasn't going to sing. Over the wall. I'll let you know where I'm going when I get there. Out from under the thumb. I'm out on the run. There's no looking back over my shoulder.
Okay.
Got my own nest of sin. Got my own rubbish bin. And I know, you got to sit up late to think hard. And I'm ready to begin.
I don't know what the nest of sin is.
I've no idea. Never seen one.
Fair enough.
So I did ask I made an inquiry, and I was told never to mention it. I was just curious.
I've got nothing to say. I don't know what to say to that.
You all right now?
Yeah, I'm fine.
You need a little
I'm just going to have a drink of
Panadol.
water.
Have a drink of water.
So, your boy.
Yes. Mighty Zane.
Tell me about the mighty Zane.
Zane is 30. No, he's not. He'll be 30 at the end of the year. So I just think of him as 30. But he's going off to France on Wednesday with his grandmother. And she lives in France anyway. So she's been here for a couple of years. Well, she came here with her husband, Zane's grandfather, and he died while he was here. So she has to go back, obviously, without him, and she's taking Zane instead. So they're going to the Cannes Film Festival because she lives opposite where the festival is held.
Oh, wow.
I know. And she has, I think she's got passes to everything, and Zane will be in heaven. And then they're spending a week in Paris after that.
Oh, he'll love it.
He will.
Because he hasn't been before.
He's never been overseas.
And Zane's, obviously, I've never met him, but from what I can tell, he's a very creative soul.
He's very creative and really smart. Yeah, he's very, very clever and in the best of ways. You know, I'm very proud of him. He's a really good soul. He's a really good spirit. He's very talented. In fact, we did a radio show for ABC Radio 774 that his father, my late husband, everyone around him is popping off. He's dead. But before he died, we wrote this show. It was an ongoing show for radio. We had a really nice little cast as well. And Zane was in it too. We used to get him out of school early on a Thursday and he'd do a couple of characters, and it was really good fun. I wrote the characters that were social characters, for characters that would phone in. It was a breakfast show, a send-up.
It's great when you get some creative people together, the things that you can pull together, the things that...
And we had freedom too. We had this producer and that was it. So, and he really didn't know all that much about being a producer, and so not for things like this, handling actors and stuff like that. So we really just had freedom. We did what we liked, really. We did some slightly inappropriate things, really, but the ABC let them through. Anyway, the time came for that to go and have find its little place.
It makes me sad to think that there's so many shows that can't be done today. Like if you think about the Paul Hogan show, you think about Benny Hill, and things like Mind Your Language, where they had every country stereotype in a English lesson, and it was really over the top. And nothing in any of those shows was saying that what was happening was right. I think people think that the audience aren't smart enough to understand irony or to understand that the things that Benny Hill were doing was correct. And I think it's kind of like you said, we've lost a lot of freedom, a lot of things that we can do to get messages across.
I watched something. Those guys are brilliant. Fast Forward, Full Frontal, the whole gang, right? Mm-hmm. And I watched something. It was just on YouTube or something the other night, and they were all in blackface. That just wouldn't even get past the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't be able to do anything like that. And it wasn't really offensive what they'd done at all. But then we don't live in a culture, by the way, that's like the American culture too. They're still really, really racist.
Yeah.
They are still racist.
We're very lucky in Australia. When you look around the world at the issues that are happening, particularly now in Russia and there's unrest in Africa, South America, Asia, we're so protected here. We're very lucky with what we have here, the freedom that we do have when we're not in lockdown.
Hasn't COVID just changed everything?
How have you survived COVID? Have you had COVID? No, I haven't either. So none of our family
I've tried hard to try and get it. I go out every day for a little walk and go to the local store and whatever, and nothing's happened. But I've had all of the vaccines and stuff like that. So.
But what happens to a creative person when you can't be social or when you can't? How have you handled lockdown? Because I know you've got you had one little puppy at the time.
Have two now.
Tell me about Mr. Fox first.
Well, Mr. Fox, I rescued him, and I thought he was Helen Keller at first. I thought he was mute, and now it turns out no.
He's definitely not mute.
No. loves a chat. And he's a little Jack Russell crossed with a Chihuahua. And then they rang me about 8 months after I got Mr. Fox. And they said, look, we've got another little one here, same sort of size. And anyway, when they said a Maltese Shih Tzu, when Zane was living at home prior to getting these two dogs, we had a mini Foxy Terrier cross with a Chihuahua, and we had that was Pixie, and the other one was Kinky Jade Kahoover Friedman. I know, because Friedman is actually Zane's surname. So Kinky Friedman also is a writer and a musician in the States, in Texas. Yeah, and we quite love him. And so Kinky Friedman was a Maltese Shih Tzu. So now I've got a Maltese Shih Tzu and a Jack Russell cross with a Chihuahua. And Jaja, her name is Jaja Baboom, and she has different coloured eyes. One's brown and one's blue. And I got her from the same place. She lived with an old man, that's all I know, because you don't know the backstory so much of dogs that you rescue or cats. And this old man called her Bluey because she had one blue eye. Anyway, he passed away and the dog was given over to his daughter, and the dog escaped. Her name was Bluey. I totally changed it as soon as I saw her. I thought she's either going to be Geraldine Lorraine, like a librarian or something. Mm-hmm. No offence to any librarians. Very much just stereotypical. Or she's going to be a sultry, smoky sort of singer in a saloon or something. And I thought, yeah, she's a sultry singer in a saloon. She does have a bark. I liken her to, well, not in a rude way, Rhonda Birchmore. Mm-hmm. So he's one of the three tenors, really, Mr. Fox. He's got a high pitch, and she sort of comes in with an alto.
And does she have an accent?
And Hungarian one, because Jaja actually means lily, I think, in Hungarian.
Oh, really? Mm. I worked with an old American actor, Van Johnson, in Clowning Around, and he used to talk about famous people all the time. And the only thing I remember, because now I wish I could speak to him, I'd ask him so many questions. I mean, he was friends with an absolute idol of mine, Jimmy Stewart and Jimmy Durante, and he was good friends with, best friends with Angela Lansbury and who else? Elizabeth Taylor, Judy Garland. He was there.
Golden era.
Yeah, he was in the 40s. He was top. And the only thing I remember him saying is about Zsa Zsa Gabor. He said the Gabor sisters, they open their mouths more than they open their legs, and that's saying something.
Yeah, right.
So that's
they got around.
That's the only Zsa Zsa thing I remember.
Yeah, there's Ava as well, and then there's Magda.
Oh, is there another one? Is there a third?
The third one.
Third Gabor. Mm. There you go. So your Zsa Zsa's got a Hungarian accent too?
I think she does.
Beautiful.
I think she does. She'd like to wallop a cop or something like that. Or was it Ava? I can't remember.
No, it was Zsa Zsa. She slapped a cop.
Yeah.
So the only person I did ask Van about, because one day he said to me, "You never asked me about anybody. You know, who do you want to know about?" And the only person I really loved was Barbara Eden. I loved Jeannie. I was always obsessed with Jeannie. Yeah. I was going to marry her.
Yeah.
And
can.
She's and she's on my list. So Amanda said if I ever get the opportunity, I can.
Oh, that's very generous of Amanda.
So I said Barbara Eden, and he just looked at me like I was crazy and said, "No one's ever asked me about her before." He said, "But when I go back to America, I'm going to find her and I'm going to tell her you said hello." So I've always thought, he's gone back and he's told Barbara Eden about me. She's heard my name. So, and I know he never did, but a couple of years ago, just before COVID, I had the opportunity to go and get a photo with Barbara Eden. She was up here, and you only have like 2 seconds with these people, and I had to meet her just because I've adored her ever since I can remember. And I walked up and I said, "Miss Eden, I worked with Van Johnson, and he said he was going to come back to say hello to you and blah blah." And she just looked at me and said, "I never met Van," and I said, "I know." And we got our photo taken. And I walked away, and that was it.
That's all right.
But I just wanted to let her know.
It went the other way around. You mentioned his name to her.
I did.
I know that Bert Newton was very good friends with him.
He was too. Yeah, he loved Bert. Van used to rave about Bert, and yeah, they were very close.
I remember once on Prisoner, this is not related to Van Johnson, well, sort of is, I guess, in one sense, because Bert's involved, that we had a technical problem on set and everyone's sitting around, and once it gets to a certain point, they have to pay overtime for crew and cast and stuff like that. So no one wants to go into overtime because then it looks like it's someone else's fault and everyone's passing the buck. So anyway, Annie Phelan said, bugger it. She just got the keys to the minivan that we had outside. She told Uncle Rabies where we were going. We went to the local restaurant in our uniforms, our prison uniforms, and our bruises and stuff. And we went out for dinner. And we're sitting there. Can you imagine just sitting there like we'd just broken out of the whole out of prison? And then Bert and Patty came over. They had been having dinner there as well.
Oh, wow.
And they were huge fans of the show. And
how could they not be?
Patty was all excited. She said, what about this episode and that episode? This character, they knew more than we did. They were huge fans of the show.
Oh, it's so sad that we've lost Bert.
I know.
It really is. Just an absolute legend. His Logies were just legendary when he hosted the Logies. That's what you think of when you think of the Logies. You think of Bert, but yeah, I never got. I got to. He was on a plane with me once, and it was at a particular hard time when they were giving him a terrible time in the magazines, which was all the time, and until somebody dies and then they say how wonderful they are, you think, why don't they just leave people alone? But yeah, he was standing there by himself, and I was going to go up and just say, hey, I'm friends with Van as well at the time, but I thought, no, he just needed his space, so I respected that. But I wish I'd gone up and had a talk to him because I know how much he loved Van, and I know, we had that kind of connection. Yeah, Van always loved the Newtons.
I, as a kid, because I used to WAG school, like school what? I just didn't go. And I'd go in the morning and then go to roll call. This is in secondary school. And then just go home. And I'd watch Bill Collins, the midday movie. And often there'd be a Van Johnson movie on, yeah.
Well, I didn't know who he was. And I find out now that my grandmother, who died when Mum was 13, so I never got to meet her, adored Van Johnson. So
he was a spunk.
Well, yeah, when Mum came over to meet him, she was so excited, and she said, my mum would have loved you. And a couple of years later, Van came to Sydney again with a lady, Catherine Grayson. She was another one of the legends.
Actress, yes.
Yeah, and they came and they did a thing at Bankstown Town Hall where they stood at the front and they showed their movies, and they sat on the stage, and then they got them to sing, which was really bad because Van was deaf as a doornail.
Right.
And they got them both to sing, and they were both in their 80s. And then they met them like they were out the front. And halfway through it, because I got a message back that I was there, and I'd worked with him a year or two before, and I had Amanda with me, so Amanda got to meet him, which was incredible. Nice. Yeah. But so I said, I'll just hang back and we'll go and see him afterwards. But then message got back to us, through people, saying, excuse me, can you go and see Van? Because he's not signing any autographs until he sees you. So we went over and he hugged us, and he was. And the first thing he said was, "Where's your mum?"
Oh.
So yeah, he was. He was a lovely, lovely man, and I just wish I would love to have sat down and had a talk to him like this.
Stewart stories.
Oh, the stories that man would have had, and he loved to talk. So. He would just talk and we had Ernie Dingo on the set, so I was more interested in Ernie and everybody else. And like I said, I didn't really know who he was. But the stories, I just remember him. And people would come over and say, what about Clint Eastwood? Oh, yeah, I've met Clint and I've done this. And, oh, yeah, I know this. And I think now, wow, to sit him down and have a talk, have a yarn with him would have been amazing.
The Van part of his name, where does that come from? What's that? Is that like a shortened version of something else?
I'm not too sure. I think it's his middle name. Charles Van Johnson, I think, was his name. But, yeah, he used Van. And he came over with his agent, Alan Farshgo. And he was a true American, a true New Yorkan man. Yeah. And they couldn't have been nicer to work with. Lavender. Van stunk of lavender. I remember if you went to his trailer, you opened the door and woof, you got this kind of woof of lavender, and he always had his red socks on. So he was a funny man. And at the time he was old, and he had a run-in with David Letterman, and it was really really bad. It was horrible because if you know Van, he's deaf as a doornail. He really is. And he's over the top, and he's a showman. You know, he was vaudeville. He was, you know, his dancing and all that sort of stuff. So he was on Letterman in the mid-90s, I think it was, and you can look it up on YouTube. It's horrible because Van's just being Van, and he can't hear, and so he just tells a story. And Letterman was so nasty to him and cut him off and raved about it being the worst interview he's ever had the next day. And knowing him and looking at him, he was just deaf. And I've always felt really bad about that. That somebody who's such a legend, who, like, all of a sudden, we were talking about it earlier today, saying that, you know, superstars of the day don't happen now, because if you're on Home and Away, it's not a big deal now. If you're on Neighbours, it's not a big deal now. But back in the 90s and the 80s and way earlier, if you're on television, it was, you know, you were a star. And someone like Van, who was one of the brightest stars of all of a sudden you're not anymore, and you're in a world where you're kind of irrelevant. And it was so sad to see him treated that way in the end, in his own country. So, and that's what I hate about Australian television these days, because I know how much love goes into it, but the bad press that comes out. Look at Kylie Minogue, you know, the singing budgie, and, you know, there's always bad things that are said when we should be celebrating things and people.
Yeah, we don't do enough of that, not at all. I mean, and even speaking of Kylie, when you look at Danny, always the comparison. That's not fair either.
Always.
It's completely unfair.
Always. So so I find all that sort of stuff unfair. But you've been writing as well. You've written a book about Mr. Fox.
He wrote his own book.
That's right. But does that have to be edited now to include his?
They liked it at Penguin, so I don't know. Oh, there's a dog out there.
See, we manifested a dog. Let's manifest $1 million. See if that works.
All right, you start first.
So your book. So he wrote a book.
He wrote a book. Now,
can I just ask, first of all, is Zsa Zsa his sister or his girlfriend, wife?
No, well, his sister, but sometimes I've seen inappropriateness.
Oh, okay. All right.
Where I've had to put it. I Googled it, and apparently it's all right.
Okay, fair enough.
But the joy they have playing, sometimes my mother would say, horseplay leads to tears. Well, in their case, Mummy has to put a stop to that one. Oh, well, look at this clever toy. Look at that squeaky one. Oh, let's get distracted.
His book.
His book is about, he doesn't like the big washing monster. He doesn't like a whole lot of things. But he's on the job. He gets outside and he hides behind bushes. This is very true of him. And he ambushes people when they walk past, and they either fall over or they go, oh, hi, Mr. Fox. And he's telling them stories. He's letting them know that down the road they're doing a bit of road work. You want to watch yourself as you turn right into Mackie Road. And, just to let you know, there's a crossing there, and the lady's still at the crossing after 9 o'clock. So if you wanted to cross over there, you're very welcome outside the school there. And he gives everyone an update community-wise. And but ultimately, at the very end of it, he talks about the fact that with all these jobs and all the things he does and his great work, which he's so proud of, he's happy because he's found where he wants to belong. And he in his fine words, he says that everybody needs a place to be and to be wanted and loved, and everybody has that, and everybody deserves that, and everybody should have somewhere that they feel that they belong. And
absolutely.
And to be safe and to just be you. So he continues on with his jobs, which actually is quite irritating sometimes. He's got quite a few jobs. He sometimes does a few night jobs as well.
So does he do a Bobbie and escape from prison every now and then?
Bobbie Mitchell.
Yeah, didn't she used to escape?
Yes. No, he just possums. He'll bark at the possums.
Okay.
Yeah, he's quite barky, but not like that beautiful dog we just watched then.
I know, he's following his owner by the looks of it.
Both of mine would be. Oh, the first day I got Zsa Zsa home, first day they said to me she does escape. And I said, oh, she's not in my front yard. Mr. Fox was sitting on the veranda looking really like, I didn't do it. I thought, what's that funny face for? We went outside. She's nowhere. I just got her. She was halfway up the street. She's really stupid, by the way. She's not clever. She can sing in a saloon. I think she moonlights down at the fake saloon down at Sovereign Hill or something. They've got songs that they sing. I remember singing a huge song that I'd made up for my dogs to Genevieve Lemon, and it was big and it had a big finish and it was all showbiz. And I said, what about your song for your dog? And she said, we're going to the park. We're going to the park to meet our friends, to meet our friends. And she said, that's it. And mine was like...
a backstory and
mine was like...
3 choruses.
Mr. Foxy, he is not very poxy. And there's Zha Zha Ba Boom. And it's a whole thing. And it goes on and it has a big finish and everything. And I sang it to her. She was bored out of her mind. And her song was, we're going to the park. We're going to the park. Meet our friends. Meet our friends. That, yeah.
Well, her dog probably doesn't have an agent.
Well, Mr. Fox manages his own affairs just like a certain somebody I remember from the 80s. And, yeah, he does his own management. He's pretty much a jack of all trades, really. And she's really stupid, God bless her. When I got her, though, she didn't know how to play with toys. So I don't know what happened with the old man.
Yeah, she was an elderly man. Yeah, different life. Well, like you said, everybody's got their place, so she's obviously found her place.
She's happy. She's really sweet, and she to be honest, we're probably luckier than she is. I mean, she would have gone with anyone. We're the lucky ones to have her. She's really sweet.
Absolutely. I always say you never trust anybody who isn't a dog person.
Yeah.
There's so much love. There's so much I couldn't do without my boy, my Charlie.
I know. I've seen Charlie in the pickies.
You can't miss him. He's the size of a small horse. But
he's a beautiful boy.
He's a beautiful boy. Very well behaved. I'd definitely have another Labradoodle before I have another kid any day. Yeah. I'll even swap the ones I've got for another Labradoodle.
Why don't you? I want to see that happen. You're about to swap your wife over for I Dream of Jeannie.
Yeah, no, I am too.
Barbara Eden, new dog. Who said anything about a midlife crisis?
This is right. I've had a couple of those, so that's all right.
Oh, well, you're ahead of yourself.
So your book, you've also written a book.
I have.
Tell me about the book.
Well, okay. I thought, I had all these photos. I just saved them all. You know when you're working on a set, they've got continuity photos, and usually they're the Polaroid style. I'm imagining today it would be digital. Yeah, I was going to say,
they'd be digital now.
They'd all be gone and lost. But I had all these photos of everybody, and I just kept them. So at the end of every studio week, when they didn't need them, or at the end of every block, when they didn't need them anymore, I'd just take them all home and go through them and keep some. And I don't know why. I didn't really have a reason to do it. And I just looked at them all one day. There were tubs of them, and they're everywhere. My Logie's invitations, things like that, were just in tubs with labels on the front. I thought, So I just started writing it, and it's called Shut Your Face, You Stupid Bitch, which is a line I had in prison. I probably wasn't the only person to ever have that line. And I didn't think anyone would read it, to be honest. And now I've sold over 300 copies, and I'm still selling them.
Well, if anybody wants a copy, I'll get them to message me, and I'll forward it on to you.
Yeah,
I'll give you a
someone
call.
else is handling for them for me now, because
all right, excellent.
I'm useless. It's bad computer. Me talk pretty one day. Maybe it'll all come together one day.
Well, I'll get the information off you, and I'll put it on the Facebook page. But yeah,
There's
I'm very
heaps
excited.
of photos. There were so many, including ones of Abigail and myself.
I had a flick through it today. It's amazing.
I know. It covers everything. So it starts out with Prisoner, and then, but it goes back and forth between different things.
What's your most cherished memory in the book?
Actually, probably the photos. To be honest, we had such fun. I mean, show business. I know it's a grind, and there's a lot of waiting around. And there's a bit of pressure, especially if you've got to suddenly cry or something like that. And television is not very forgiving in terms of time. And if you're doing a huge blockbuster film, you've got 3 days to work your way up to tears, whereas on TV, you literally have to just find that really, and it hurts. Sometimes it's really hard to do. You really have to hurt yourself. And it's not shot in a chronological order either, so your next scene you could be, you have to recover, things like that. But for the better part, isn't it fun? It's just fun.
There's like I said before, there's nothing like it.
How ridiculous does everyone get when they're bored?
Mm-hmm.
How stupid do people find things to dress up in and just turn up out of nowhere? And you think, what are you doing? Oh, I got bored. Yeah.
I did a series called Hill's End with it was directed by the beautiful Di Drew, and there were 7 children. There were animals. There was a bull that escaped in the stories. Di used to call it the 4 o'clock funnies. When at 4 o'clock you just lose it, and all of us would lose it at the same time, including the adults. But you get to that stage when you're on a film set where you've been there all day, and you just lose it. You just go a bit silly.
And also depending on the show, like for Prisoner, those women were very strong. Walking into that green room my very first day, I'd been in before because I had to have my hair cut off. My character was a punk, so they had to chop my hair off and stuff. So I'd been in once. And then the next time I went in, I was at work and it was a rehearsal day. And when it's already someone's working environment, you could be out there, you could be gone next week. Really.
Yeah, you're the newbie.
Yeah, and this was new to me on so many levels. I had not worked in this situation before. And so just walking into that green room and everyone looked like they knew what they were doing, and I did not know. I had too many pens and stuff. What was I going to start writing? Was I at school? School I didn't even go to. Once you have to prove yourself, actually.
Yeah.
You know that.
That terrified me more than anything because I'm not a good cold reader. So if we had to do a read-through of a script, and I remember we did one at Ellie and Jules, and I sat next to Abby and she just held my hand under the table.
Oh.
But yeah, it terrifies me doing cold reading. I'm okay if I learn a line and I can improvise or work but yeah, cold reading terrified me, especially when you're in front of people who you admire so much. And you know that, like you said before, they're on a time. You've got to get through this.
Someone's timing it while you're speaking.
Yeah, they are.
That's what happens. I know there is such fun to be had. There's a lot of fun to be had. I mean, on Prisoner, for example, Judy McBurney, one of the actresses in the show who played a character called Pixie, she'd left her cat back in Sydney and the show was shot in Melbourne. So there was a big court case in the green room over 2 lunch times. Waste of time. You can't get that back, right? Not that you'd want to. And every crew as well. And there was a jury, there was a prosecutor. Should Judy have custody of her own cat?
Mm-hmm.
She lost the custody of the cat.
Oh, did she?
To I think Raylene Pierce, who didn't even want the cat actually. She played Phyllis Hunt. So we did a lot of silly things. It was good fun.
Who was in Prisoner on your time? Was it the Freak or was it Vinegar Tits?
No, it was the Freak. But Vinegar Tits played my poor old Fiona Spence. She played my foster mother in the kids show I did before Prisoner.
Oh, that's right. I remember you saying that before.
And so 5 weeks after doing that, there I was on the Prisoner set, her old stomping ground. And, yeah, Maggie was in it. Maggie's a fantastic actress and a really wonderful person.
Oh, she's incredible. And so some of the iconic characters that came out of that show, your Sheila Florence, Lizzie Birdsworth and
when it started, I remember Uncle Raby saying that he got a briefing at from the network saying, we've got this new drama coming up. We don't know how long it's going to last for. It's with women and they're all from the theatre. So we don't know what you should expect. Good luck. And pretty much that set the tone for the show. It was quite theatrical.
It was. It really was.
It was like a little piece of theatre on telly. It was very interesting.
So I've skipped over this. You've mentioned this a couple of times, but I've got to get the backstory. Uncle Rabies.
Well, I don't know how it started. I do know how it started. I think he was Mr. Fix-It for everyone's woes and Dorothy Dix and everything else.
Yeah.
Just a really nice, gentle soul. Like nothing was a problem. They could have been going bananas up in the control room and screaming and swearing and snapping pencils and whatever, but you'd never know with Uncle Rabies on the floor. He'd just be on set, just really calmly, just translating, and because anyone on the cans, on any of the camera crew would hear, any boom swingers, everyone would be able to hear what was going on otherwise, but No, not the cast. We didn't know unless they used the key to yell at you, which they never did. I did never see it. And anyway, someone said, "Thank you, Ray," or rabies, or I don't know how. One person said it. I think it could have been Betty Bobbett, and it just stuck. And in fact, there was a character in the show. Alex Menglet played the character. He was the chef that was in the kitchen, and his character was Gay Ray. That's how he was. That's how the characters in the show used to refer to him as Gay Ray, and he slipped it in as often as he possibly could. He'd say, "Come to your Uncle Rabies." Uncle Rabies will fix it.
Did you ever get to take control of the press in the laundry?
Yes.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, no, can you imagine that shock
That's
that I got
massive.
that day? Bobbie, take over. Oh!
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Did you get to put anybody's hands in there?
Nah.
Oh, that's no
Nah.
fun. Come on, they could have
Wasn't-
given you a go.
Well, it wasn't hot, really.
Somebody got their head in there once, didn't they?
Might as well.
Yeah.
Even with a penny. Yeah, no, that was just obviously, was it dry ice or something?
I think so.
And there'd be a props guy just pressing it at the right moment. So the big action, the huge action of pressing it down. And, well, it was really flimsy.
Oh, but it was so dramatic at the time. Like, that was massive. Like
Yes.
and you knew who the top dog was because she was on there. And
Yeah.
if somebody got to take over, that was, you made it.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to use the press twice, but it was really by accident. So there was no one else. Bobbie, take over. I mean, that's ridiculous. She'd
You did it
singe her
though.
hair. I know.
Yeah, I know the hair. How much?
Well, the hair. Let's talk about the hair for a minute. So I had very long hair before I started the show, and they said to me, "You'll have to cut it off." And I said, "I won't do the show then. I'm fine." I said that to them. My father, of course, my manager father said, "What? It's only hair. It will grow back." I said, "Well, that's a point." Didn't even consider it.
Which is what your hair was. Your hair was a point. It was
Oh, well, in the end, they cut it right off.
So how long was it when they cut it
Well,
off?
it was really short. It was very short, and she was a punk, and they had different colours and stuff in it. But then it obviously over 2 years it grew and it kept growing, and we talked about putting in different little coloured ponytails and little knots and things like that. But the production house said no, so they just kept teasing it. It looked ridiculous. They used to call me. Well, they had a few nicknames for me, the crew. So when they call us from the green room, sometimes I was electric head. I might have had a serious scene to do. Show a bit of respect.
Electric head to the floor.
Yeah, electric head, you're on. Then they called me, because of my name, Klibingaitis, right? At first they were nice to me, so they called me Killing Alligators. And then it became Clubbing Alligators. And then one day, one of the crew came in and said, "Lemon and fucking alligators, you're on." Well, hello. There's a stretch if ever I've seen one. She just got her surname, Genevieve Lemon. No one consulted me or anything. So
You can sue for that now.
I'm still going to do a pickup on the lawsuit. When we all finished up, we had different presents that we made for everybody, and Judith McGrath started actually. She's the late Judith McGrath. She started it. She used to get fan mail for Mrs. Powell, and it used to say, "Dear Mrs. Powell," as in the dog food, right?
wow.
Yes, "Dear Mrs. Powell." And so when she left, she got badges made up for everybody, cast and crew, that said, "Po Face loves you, Pal is free." So when I left, of course, I just stole her idea, really. And I got badges made up with Love and Electric Head. I didn't put fucking alligators on it.
No?
No, it wouldn't fit on there anyway. And Genevieve had Go Suck a Lemon. Yeah, after that, no, I don't think anyone did badges. I think we ruined the idea. And Sheila Florence gave everyone a potted plant, which I thought was very nice.
Yeah, that's lovely.
I think at one point we had Lizzie's Port as well. There was some...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and for years my manager father, James Jurgis, a.k.a. if you anglicise it, James Klibingaitis, he had it on his bar. He didn't watch the show. I once said to him, "Dad, could you just run these lines with me?" It's just a few lines, and they were Maggie's lines, the Joan Ferguson, the Freaks lines.
Oh, that would have been wonderful to hear.
Well,
Him
yeah,
doing...
really, because this is what I said. I had something mundane to say, like, I was just going to the loo, Miss Ferguson? And he'd say, right, I will get you, Mitchell. Just you wait and see. I said, no, Dad, that's too distracting. I can't. Thank you for helping me, Dad. Not a problem, anytime. Anytime at all. Action.
Perfect.
And cut. Parents were really funny. We had a funny upbringing. You know, you were saying that you had this idyllic family upbringing, really beautiful, solid.
Really grounded.
Supportive. Yeah. And ours was completely dysfunctional, but in that we were just – Mum had enough, I think, after 4 of us, and Mum just let us do whatever we wanted, really. So I mean, what sort of mother, when you think about it, you say, Mum, can we go nick-knocking at night just around the streets, banging on people's door, making social nuisances of ourselves? Mum says, as long as you don't break a window.
Yeah.
And my brother did. He picked up a half a brick and threw
no.
it. Well, we could see the silhouette of the family sitting on. I know.
Wow.
No, that shames me to tell that story.
Oh, so don't say that.
No, I haven't told that story. Did I think it or did I say it? I'm not sure.
I do that. I have my outside voice. It just happens now as I get older.
Oh, I catch
happens.
myself talking to myself in the supermarket because I live alone. So
I have some great – I answer myself with some really good answers too.
that's why my mother used to talk to herself. She said, you get better answers. Yeah. We just used to do anything we wanted, really. It didn't matter.
How did you handle the dreaded F word, fame? When was the first time you were recognised?
Oh, that came really soon after the character aired.
So we're talking Prisoner.
Yep, Prisoner. Yeah.
Well,
I still get, can you believe it? I look as though I've been exhumed, really.
Oh, come on. No.
And, come on. True, I'll be 58 on the 17th of this month. And so, I went to the second-hand shop with my son. He was getting stuff because his housemate was moving out and he needed to replace some stuff that she was taking of hers. And from behind the counter, the woman said, oh, you're Bobbie from Prisoner. I said, oh. And then I don't know where they came from. It was scary. A whole lot of old ladies with grey hair just came from nowhere, like little zombies, and said, "Oh, Bobbie, I'll remember that. Yes, yes." And it takes me back. I said, "What is a freak? Is the freak still around there?"
I was about 17 and I snuck out with a friend of mine, Margaret, who was very well respected by my mum. Margaret was a couple of years older, and we snuck to the Cross one night. We said, I'm just going to Margaret's house, and she said she was going to my place, and we jumped on a train and went to the Cross. And I was about 16, and so Ellie and Jules was just on, and we're walking down the main street of the Cross, and we walked past the Pink Pussycat or one of those shows, and there's a big Tongan bouncer out the front who would just kill you with his stares. And I kind of walked past, and I looked like a 10-year-old, and he kind of looked at me and said, "Hey, Jules, you want to come in and see some pussy?"
Right.
And I'm like, "No, thank you very much," and just kept walking. That was one of the times I was recognised.
You got recognised.
By outside the Pink Pussycat.
By a giant bouncer.
That's right.
Outside a place of disrepute.
This is right. So what other stories do you have of?
I went to a shopping centre, just went to the shopping centre and they had to call security. How ridiculous. Couldn't get out.
It's such a funny thing because it's so exciting to work, and the fame thing or the recognition thing you don't think about when you're doing it.
I never thought about it. It was a drag to do things that publicity stuff, and the publicity department knew that we didn't really want to, but you have to because it's part of the job. Yeah. It's just part of the deal. It comes with it. Some of the publicity stuff was good fun.
It still amazes me how many things they get wrong though. How they can get names wrong, or they can get it's incredible when you sit down with somebody and you give them all the information and they get it wrong.
We were sent off to the races, Toddy Goldsmith and I don't know, everything was paid for, and I was completely a non-drinker, and Toddy said, "You've got to have some of this, it's lovely." "Oh, it's shampoo, have some." So I had some champagne. I thought, actually, it's quite nice, this fizzy stuff. It's nice, a bit like lemonade. So I had a few of them, and of course I got drunk. And I was wearing clothes that they had borrowed for me from Chapel Street in South Yarra, including a hat and everything. So we got a bit psycho killer, qu'est-ce que c'est down there. And we went back to Toddy's place, and Toddy's father, he owned the Underground nightclub in, I think it's King Street in the city, and it was the place to go, the Underground. It was very groovy, kind of studio, is it 54?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And Toddy took me, had a few champagnes, and I was wearing her clothes by this time and had left all my borrowed stuff at her house just on the floor. And she took me into this big room with huge doors, and we went through, and there, sitting there was her father with all of this beautiful gold jewellery on, and a heap of people I probably should have known, but, well, one, I was a bit drunk, and two, I was too young to realise, and a bit like you with Van Johnson, not knowing which questions to ask or who to ask after or whatever. So I was there, but I did recognise one, and she said, "This is my auntie. This is Olivia," and there was Olivia Newton-John.
Oh, wow.
She was so pretty.
Yeah.
I was wearing wine goggles, but, yeah, she was very pretty. And so the next day, Totty rang my house, and my manager dad answered, and he said, "Totty Goldsmith on the phone." And she said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm okay." Wow. Talk about your shampoo. And anyway, she said, "I'll see you at work on rehearsal. I'll bring your borrowed clothes in." And when she brought them in, they were so wrecked.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they were really wrecked. They were dirty. They'd been trodden on. I must have fallen over. There was mud and dirt. And the hat, forget it, like it was gone. And they borrowed that
No.
from a fancy, boutique in Chapel Street. I didn't get into trouble, but it was talked about.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, because wardrobe on Prisoner said apparently ruined this outfit, and the hat had to be reblocked completely.
No.
Was that bad?
I've been lucky enough to come down to the Melbourne Cup a few times, and it fascinated me how stunning the ladies were in the mornings.
Yeah.
And then in the afternoon, they've got one shoe on, they vomit
Totty.
down their side. Yeah. It was
I
unbelievable.
think we were
the
singing
difference.
show tunes or something. It wasn't pretty, but look, some things that can be really good fun, and doing telethons as well, which is for a good reason. Now you're raising money for a charity, but also there's nice stuff associated with that. You get flown for just to do very little except be yourself, and they give you gifts and things like that, all nice things. And then, of course, the same happens when you're in a show, like when we did Family and Friends. We were the biggest thing that was supposed to happen to Channel 9 in ages, and we got free gym memberships, we got everything. Limousines, we got everything. And as soon as the show was finished, so was that.
Yep. It finishes.
Gone.
Yep.
Make your own way back to Melbourne, thanks.
That was the only, I would say, I've been recognised a long time ago, but the only day I really felt like a celebrity was the day we did the Perth Telethon. It was incredible. I was in a room with all these famous people, and people were ringing up to speak to me, and that was where I got to meet Celine Dion, and it was just, that was the day where you felt, oh, okay, like this is exciting.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, then it finishes,
Well,
the
it
show
does.
finishes, you fly back home, and
You had a fancy one then. Genevieve and I got flown somewhere, and they put on a backyard, some sort of barbecue and some salads and stuff, and there were just old actors who had their day in the sun, and really, but they wanted to tell you all about it, and we were just standing there, and like the stories wouldn't stop, and Genevieve just said to me when there was a moment, she said, "Oh my God, how many more dinosaur stories do we have to listen to?" But, when I look back at that now, that was rude of us really to have that attitude, because these people were valuable to our industry. And in fact, as you were saying earlier, not enough is done now. We should be using our actors.
absolutely.
We should be using our mature age actors. There should be stuff that's set up. Wouldn't it be great to have something set up with all of our older actors that, what are they doing? Rowena, I know she's not doing a whole lot.
But she's been looking, and she's been very vocal about looking.
Yeah.
And surely there's something where, we can use all these talents, and there's certainly enough people who adore her and adore so many actors who are out of work. And it always worries me when I look back at TV Week covers from 15 years ago, and you think all these people who are on the cover of every magazine, you don't see them anymore. And it's I find that,
or you see them popping up if they're lucky, and this is not an actor's dream at all, in an ad for aged health insurance or something.
Yeah.
You know,
I've always had my biggest fear is showing up in a Where Are They Now, and you know, and they have a horrible photo of you and me in my fat pants, or you know, somewhere where you're getting a photo taken where you're not wanted, and I always worry about that, because it's not about, you know, we're all human. I remember I was walking through, Amanda and I were walking through Coles or Woolworths once, and, you know, we had a screaming kid in the trolley, toilet paper and, you know, everything that we need in the shopping. It was piled up. It was about 11 o'clock at night, and we walked past the magazines, and I kind of stopped and I said to Amanda, remember when I was video hunk of the month in TV Hits? And she's like, yeah, keep going. And you know,
yes, this is my new reality.
I wasn't even DVD hunk of the month. It was video.
Right.
But yeah, it's funny. It's funny how things, you know, you certainly
it's
always
like a yo-yo.
walk back down to earth. And that's so true. And I always say it's like being on stage in a theatre show. How you know, before the show the audience comes in, everything's exciting, and you're on stage and you're feeding from the audience, and you're backstage and there's hustle and bustle and there's people, and you come out afterwards and people want you to sign their programs, and it's all, you know, up and everything's so brilliant, and then you're in a car on your own driving home, and you go like the highs and the lows. It's you understand how people can't handle that. Because it's addictive.
Like you, I had a nice solid family who didn't even know about anything to do with show business. So my dad actually once introduced me amongst his friends. He said, this is my daughter Caroline. Yep. My brother Francis. My son Francis. My other daughter Belinda. And this is my eldest daughter here, Bobbie Mitchell.
Oh, no.
That's not my name, Dad. But that's pretty much all they knew. They didn't know. Any of what I was doing. I'd go up to Sydney and do a job, and they didn't know what Family and Friends was. I'd have to tell them it was on, and they'd forget. Mum would be watching, you know, some English show or something.
My mum's obsessed with UK TV. She watches everything UK. I've started to watch some, actually. It's quite good. They've got some good stories. It'd be good to be an actor over there, because the same 5 or 6 actors in every show. So.
Oh, yeah, right. You could get a job on Coronation Street. That's still going. Yeah, but they've also produced some really out there stuff. It's a shame that we don't follow suit. The Young Ones, for example, that series.
Iconic.
And they only did 12.
Yeah. And the same with Fawlty Towers.
Right.
There was only 12.
Really?
Yeah. And Mr. Bean, there was only a small amount. I think there was like
it's clever, isn't
16 or something. But you think it was on for years, because it's always on, you watch them.
Zane was over the other day and we were watching a bit of The Young Ones, and he said to me, is this still the same episode? And I said, yeah, they just jam-pack so much in.
Oh, absolutely. It was just so offbeat and exciting, and the characters were mental. And it was just about the chemistry and the laughter. You know, that's what
they were doing those characters at uni before. Well, not all of them, but I know that Adrian Edmondson and Rick Mail were, and Nigel Planer was doing Neil as a stand-up character as well. Also, I know that Jane Turner and Gina Riley have been friends for a long, long time.
Yep.
And that they started out, I think it's at Martin's Theatre, which is here in South Yarra, and they were young girls back then, and you can see the evolution, if you like, of Jane Turner's Kath Day Night, because you can see she's done good on her, but she's built the character over the years. She's had the opportunities. Those opportunities aren't there anymore for people coming up like that, and those people ended up making their own stuff. Yeah,
and I think that would be the ultimate. If you could get to the stage where you can make your own stuff and make your own career. I know Margot Robbie's doing it now. You know, she's had such success in the US, and now she's producing her stuff. How brilliant would that be?
We almost don't need those people in suits and ties that make and break shows like Family and Friends anymore because people are just making stuff to go straight out there, streaming it and things like that.
Yeah, and we can get stuff out now. Like, I love doing this because it can be on my terms, it can be with people I know and love, and people, can just talk about anything. Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
Been a long time coming. Maxine Klibingaitis, I love you.
I love you.
You're part of the family now and have been for a long time, and hopefully we'll get together again soon.
We will. We will.
I know we will.
Thank you so very much. You're beautiful.
You're beautiful.
For those that can't see you, you have this amazing aura.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's just my big head. That's all it is.
Pretty shiny lights over it. That's true.
Yes.
Didn't factor that in.
Lovely to see you as always.
Oh, bye-bye, darling.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yarn About You is a Centre Stage creative production. Follow us on Facebook by searching Yarn About You, or visit yarnaboutyou.com.au for more information about the podcast and our guests.